What up, YouTube? Elleix coming back at you with another StarCraft 2 cast. On the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have our green Zerg player, MisterFlip, and on the top left-hand side of the map, we have our blue Protoss player, Icebrand. This is a player-submitted game, but I forgot to ask what league these players are in. So, I'm excited to see what we're going to get out of these players today. This is an early pool. This looks like a 13 pool coming from our green Zerg player. Icebrand does send out an early scout though, so he may spot this. Actually runs the probe away, does spot that there is no expansion in the natural, and it looks like he's going to be checking in the third base location as well, just to make sure he's not getting psyched out here. He can't discern from the timing of this lack of a natural base for the Zerg player that he may be getting cheesed right now. I expect that this is going to be cheese from our green Zerg player, and we do see 6 Zerglings on the way. Icebrand doing a great job seeing that there is no expansion to speak of for the Zerg player, and when you're playing against a Zerg player and you don't see an early expansion, you're almost guaranteed some cheese. Throws down a cheeky pylon to block the natural base for the Zerg player, and this might, I was going to say, this might buy him some time. It would serve as bait for these Zerglings, and it would give Icebrand some time to lock off his main base right here. But Icebrand doing a good job as well, not expanding immediately behind this, notices that he's being cheesed, and instead of going for an early Nexus, is throwing down some photon cannons, and I expect he's going to close this wall with a pylon, and he does. This cannon will finish in time, so Icebrand doing a great job at shutting down this 13 pool. On the minimap, we do see that there is an expansion coming down for the Zerg player right now. So I want to say MisterFlip doing a good job as well, realizing that his 13 pool was shut down and forced the Protoss player into a build that he may have not wanted to engage in. So this will put Zerg ahead in one base, actually 2 bases for the time being. We see another hatchery coming down for the Zerg player, and oh my god, this Overlord just escaping with its life. It got beat up by these photon cannons, and now he's running away with a black eye. He's like, man, I was just chilling and you guys beat me up. What the hell, man? Dude, this is looking like it's shaping up to be a wild game. We actually have a sneaky Nexus right here for the Protoss player. We did have some scouting probes that were able to leave the main base of Icebrand. So it's possible MisterFlip will spot this if he decides to fly this Overlord around, but this is in a bit of an unusual spot. Icebrand has to be careful to not let the Zerg player spot this, and actually does juke the Zerglings and starts running back towards the main base. It did seem like he was almost running back to his sneaky second base right here. We have 2 gateways right now. We don't have Warp Gate on the way just yet, but this is going to be two adepts coming in for the Protoss player right here. I would like to see Warp Gate being researched here soon. We do have the Twilight Council as well as another gate. So this is going to be 4 gate on technically 1 base, I guess, 5 gate. But he does have the second base just now finishing up. Not quite yet established. It still needs to be saturated, but I think it's pretty safe for the time being. Zerg seems to be pretty fixated on the top left-hand side of the map. He's not scouted the right-hand side at all, so this Nexus totally hidden right now. And I feel like I saw a weird animation anomaly here. It looks like there's some artifacts coming up from under the Nexus. That's a little bit weird to me, but anyway, no need to worry about that right now. We have to worry about these Zerglings, and taking a look at the Zerg side of the base, we don't really see a lot in terms of production. It looks like he switched from cheese to hard macro, very greedy play, throwing down a spine crawler as well. And as far as Zerg knows, he does not know that there is a second base right here, but these Zerglings are dangerously close. Are they going to spot this Nexus? Man, it looks like they're not. They're actually running away. They are scouting everywhere but this top right-hand corner. So this Nexus, for the time being, is safe. This Tickle Cannon destroying this Overlord. Was it Husky that coined the term Tickle Cannon? I think it was. I think he called sentries Tickle Cannons. Man, what a time. It's been so long since I watched Husky replays. But he is an inspiration nonetheless for StarCraft casters. Man, we do have Icebrand throwing down some harassment here with the Adepts. I would like to see a Shade now that they are being surrounded. A Shade as soon as he saw these Zerglings would have saved those Adepts, but let's see. The workers killed. 8 workers killed. I mean, that was a lot of Adepts for 8 workers, but nonetheless, still killed 8 workers. So it could be a lot worse. Now we have the technically third base in the natural location for the Protoss player. The sneaky natural here, or not natural, the sneaky secondary base, doing a great job at being sneaky. It has not been spotted at all. And man, if I sound tired, it is because I am. I had a long day at work today, and I stocked up on way too much caffeine than is acceptable for a human to consume. And I'm still tired somehow, but my heart rate is up. So right now I'm sleepy, but I have a very, very fast heart rate. So you know what? I did that to myself, man. Nice control on these Zerglings. MisterFlip taking one Zergling from his little mob of Zerglings right here to try and get some scouting in, but should have realized that there are 2 cannons in the main base for the Protoss player, but doing a good job at scouting nonetheless. Does see that as far as he's concerned, he's way ahead in bases, but he does not know that there is a sneaky second base. So he thinks that this second base is just now coming down for the Protoss player. Taking a look at the army supply, it is virtually identical. Worker supply is in favor for the Zerg player by about 10 workers. So things are quieting down right now just a little bit. We do have a Twilight Council here. No forges down just yet, except for the one, actually. I'm used to seeing double forge, just because I like to play double forge. So I shouldn't have said that. This forge came down at the beginning of the game. But we don't see any upgrades just yet. Taking a look, we do see charge is finished, actually. So I missed that. Charge is finished for the Protoss player, and it looks like he's going to push out right here. Eventually, once the economy allows for it, I would like to see Icebrand throw down an observer as well, just to prevent some of this creep spread. If we take a look at the minimap right here, Zerg doing a pretty good job at creep spread. About, I want to say, almost half the map. Not quite, but almost half the map for the Zerg player is covered in creep right here, and we do have Banelings. Not too many Banelings, but it is Zergling Baneling right now, which against a mid-game Protoss, I don't want to say is ideal, especially with the amount of sentries Icebrand has. He would be able to force field some of those Banelings and prevent them from getting us around, and then maybe even be able to snipe some of these Banelings with the Stalkers. He doesn't have a big Stalker count just yet, and I don't blame him. I mean, Charge Zealots feel so much superior to me than Stalkers, but I'm also very biased. I feel like Stalkers, you sneeze on one and 2 of them die. I feel like they're so weak. I know they're not. I'm just biased against them. That's my own personal bias. I do realize that Stalkers have utility. Oh, I do like this. This Elucidated Phoenix gets a good scout on the Zerg side of things. Probably will notice that there's not really a lot of tech outside of a Baneling nest, and if he scouts just a little bit farther down, we'll see a Roach Warren as well. I do like Icebrand's use of an Elucidated Colossus here. This might actually tank a lot of damage if Zerg chooses to try and focus fire this thing. But suddenly the Colossus vanishes, so MisterFlip should realize that he's been duped. That was not a real Colossus. We do see +1 weapons on the way, and we see what is going to be a Dark Shrine on the way for our blue Protoss player right here. So Icebrand is going to try and do some DT harassment, I think, in the middle of this game right here. You have a few roaches now, a few banelings. I do like the diversity of units for the Zerg player, but he should start thinking about transitioning into maybe Hydralisks or units other than banelings. I feel like, I said it earlier, but I feel like banelings, especially against a composition like this, really isn't ideal. Of all the things that Stalkers are good at surviving against, it is banelings for some reason. They're not bad. They're not bad at surviving baneling shots. And I really like the use of force fields by Icebrand here as well, and maybe able to actually stop some of these queens from running away. One queen goes down, second queen goes down, third queen goes down, so that was 3 queens for free. They were off creep, they were walking slow, they had way too much pizza for lunch, and they just had to walk home. Sprinting for them was a slow-paced walk, but this is a very good engagement for MisterFlip right here, able to corner the Protoss army into this little ramp right here against the rocks and losing a good portion of his army. Icebrand now down to 16 army supply, but does have a pretty decent wall right here. And actually, I totally forgot about this base. It has been able to survive this whole game so far. We actually see the minerals are starting to diminish. This base has been around for so long, and now we have what is going to be a run by of Char Zealots. And looking at the production tab, we see 4 Stargates on the way as well. So Icebrand honestly doing a good job at making sure his opponent doesn't really know what to react to right now. MisterFlip thinks all he has to deal with is gateway units, sees Charge Zealots, sees Stalkers, sees Sentries. He's building a full anti-ground army. There is no anti-air here to speak of except for Queens and a few Spore Crawlers, I guess, in the third base location. But I was just very distracted right here, and does do the recall on these Dark Templar. It looks like there was a snipe on what I think is probably the 5th or 6th base for the Zerg player. And taking a look at the workers killed here, it looks like they were able to take out 6 more workers on top of that. We have 14 workers killed. I believe it was 8 workers killed earlier. So those Dark Templar are able to take out a few more workers and snipe a hatchery. And we have another run by here of Zealots. So even though Zerg is going crazy on these expansions right here, Icebrand doing a great job at making sure he throws down harassment constantly. Ideally, you don't want to be throwing away units for free, but as a Protoss player, you don't want to let Zerg just sit around and snowball out of control, because eventually you will not be able to keep up, especially with the amount of bases MisterFlip has as compared to Protoss. It would just become a really, really hard game for Icebrand if he just allowed Zerg to sit untouched. That is, I think, one of the biggest mistakes I personally made when I started to play StarCraft, was just get into this mindset of, oh yeah, I'll just play a macro game. You know, I won't do any sort of harassment because I'm not skilled enough. And then letting Zerg just roll all over me. Yeah, I'll kill one of his armies, but then I'll be at, you know, like 120 supply, and suddenly Zerg's at 200 supply again. It's just not ideal. So you want to be throwing harassment against Zerg players constantly if you want to hope to keep up in the late game against a Zerg player. In my experience as a Protoss player, at least, I am not an expert in StarCraft by any means, or I should say I'm not a pro by any means, but I have been playing StarCraft since Wings of Liberty. I've been playing this game since I was a teenager, and I love it, but I am not a pro by any means. I'm too old. My APM is just too slow. So even though I know conceptually what I have to be doing, my body just does not listen to me. So that's where I'm at in my life. But I do like this engagement here. I like that Icebrand decided to engage in this top right section of the Zerg base right now, because this actually keeps attention off his base in the top right-hand corner. Because if Zerg decide to try and expand here, man, that would be really annoying to deal with. It would be a hard base to defend. I think it would just go down, to be honest. We have a pretty big engagement of Zerglings right here. But outside of the Queens, there's no anti-air right now. We do see some Corruptors on the way, though. They will be able to take out some of these Void Rays, and we do have a lot of Queens as well. They will be able to heal each other. So Icebrand doing a great job at not overextending, doesn't want to lose his entire army. This is 119 army supply to 60 in favor of the Zerg player, so this is looking to be pretty rough. I mean, even though Icebrand is throwing a lot of harassment, at least in the early to mid game against the Zerg player, he did throw away a lot of his units to those harassments. And as we can see right now, the Zerg macro is just going insane. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bases. Not quite maxed out yet. He's 30 supply away from being maxed out. And to be fair, I think MisterFlip, for the amount of bases he has, I just noticed this, he only has 51 workers. So 51 workers to 7 bases. I would expect MisterFlip to have a lot more workers. To be fair, he lost a lot of workers in those engagements, so he did lose 30 workers. So ideally, this worker supply should be closer to 70 or 80, I want to say. So we do see the consequence of the harassment against the Zerg player. He should be well maxed out by now based on the amount of bases he has, but losing 30 worker supply, it kept him from being maxed out. Now we're seeing a virtually maxed out Zerg. We have carriers and a mothership on the way. I like the mix of the Tempest here as well, and Icebrand being very careful to not overextend himself here, and I really like that. Corruptors are so good against capital ships, Terran and Protoss capital ships alike. So Icebrand doing a great job making sure he's not going to lose his army to the Corruptors. I think he's going to go for more of a critical mass of carriers, and we see what is going to be a Templar Archives on the way as well. So he may mix in some Archons here, and I would not be mad about that. Archons are a very good unit against Protoss, and all around just a very tanky unit. We do have Broodlords though. They will be able to keep a lot of the ground units at bay. Broodlords, I think, I talk smack on Stalkers all the time, but I think Stalkers are actually a pretty decent counter to Broodlords because you just blink forward away from the Broodlings and snipe the Broodlords. You just have to be careful to make sure not to lose your Stalkers to the rest of the Zerg army if you do a forward blink. So this game is going to turn into a little bit of a crazy macro game at this point. Both players are virtually maxed out. We have the mothership, which did finish, and we have what is going to be an engagement here on the middle right side of the map, and we are going to see Protoss engage with this Zerg army. We do have Overseers as well, and we had a crazy abduction on that on that mothership. MisterFlip just throwing in the lull. It was so fast, it almost looked like that mothership teleported there. And I just want to throw some attention here to the second base, the sneaky second base of the Protoss player. He's mining this thing out. This base has not been spotted the entire game. So I just want to point that out. That's pretty crazy. He just had that base the whole time. I feel like you don't see that too often. I feel like Icebrand at this point is throwing away some zealots to either clear out some of this creep or open up some supply for himself to build more carriers. He is re-upping on this mothership right here. He is researching Sky Toss weapons as well. But right now, he's just sitting back. I really don't know. I really don't know what the plan is right here. Just to get a good engagement. Maybe even start doing some base trading. But Zerg is expanded so much. He's got like 3/4 of this map totally covered in creep. Man. This game is getting wild, folks. The one thing about Broodlords, though, they are very slow. So if you run them in front of your army, you will be able to snipe them. Even though we had the crazy abduct on this carrier, it runs back home. It survives, my friends. This carrier, a hero for the Protoss race. I mean, it technically only has 1 kill. So it's like, yeah, he almost died. Got 1 kill, an entire carrier, an entire capital ship got 1 kill. Now I think this almost looks like Protoss might be overextending himself here. He just went right into the middle of this Zerg army, into the middle of the firing line for the Corruptors and the Queens, losing almost every single carrier right here. One survives with 4 kills, and now we have 61 army supply to 108. But both players have a pretty decent bank right now after being maxed out for so long. I do suspect that this hatchery will be canceled as well. Does force the cancel on this hatchery, and we do see a run by of Zealots. Will start taking out some of these workers, and I do want to say, I mean, taking a look at the workers killed right here, 35 workers killed to 2. So 2 workers killed for the Zerg player this entire game, and 35 killed for the Protoss player. So that is something to take into consideration right here. We do see 75 workers to 64 in favor of the Protoss player. And man, I just gotta respect this. This entire base is going to be mined out. Hasn't been spotted once by the Zerg player. He's going to try expand there one day, and he's going to be so confused. He's going to be like, wait a minute. When did that base get there? Why is it already mined out? Isn't it one of the last bases you take in the game? We have another abduction on this... on this mothership. The Protoss fleet can't catch a break. They keep building motherships and they keep going down. They're like, come on, man, our infrastructure right here. And it looks like this pylon is just out of reach of these warp gates, so we do see a slow warp in of stalkers right here. But it doesn't matter too much. We do have plenty of other places that Protoss could warp in. We have another big engagement here for the Protoss, but I want to say Zerg just has so many anti-air corruptors, I should say. So many anti-air units. And man, this is such a scary sight. And this is what I mean going against late game Zerg. Once they get their macro all sorted, you're just constantly going against a maxed out Zerg army. And we have the corruptors surrounding the broodlords. This is just so maddening. I would almost like to see Tempests. Even though the Tempests would get sniped by the Corruptors, they would be able to snipe the Broodlords as well. And as soon as the Broodlords are gone, all you have to do is run some Zealots and Stalkers into the Zerg base and start throwing down some mad destruction right here. And I think this might be the case right now. Zerg is overpopulating his army with Corruptor and Broodlords. And yeah, this wasn't the best engagement for Protoss necessarily, but eventually, Zerg just won't have enough to deal with the ground army for the Protoss player. Is my assumption right here. We'll find out shortly, but I really don't know. I mean, this is great going against a Protoss Sky Fleet. And then eventually, you know, once you destroy the Sky Toss, you morph your Corruptors into Broodlords. But right now, this is a slow-moving army, and we don't have much of an answer outside of a few speedlings here and there, especially because Zerg is virtually maxed out. So at this point, it's almost like Icebrand could just start harassing the Zerg bases with his ground army. Now he knows that the Zerg fleet basically is on the other side of the map. Now he would just be able to run right here, snipe this this expansion. Then notices that Zerg tried to answer that by going to the bottom left-hand side of the map, and then he goes to the bottom right-hand side of the map and keeps yo-yoing his opponent. I think that would be a valid strategy at this point. He doesn't want to engage this army directly. This is just way too much of everything. This is just an absolute cluster of stuff for the Zerg player. So I think he could just flip-flop around and keep catching the Zerg out of position. I think that's what I would try to do in this situation. Just keep an eye on the Zerg army and keep throwing down harassment and eventually outlast the Zerg player. And this is what I would suggest for MisterFlip to do as well. You have a maxed out army. You've been maxed out for so long that you might as well just go in for the kill and do what Protoss is doing by just harassing harassing your opponent's bases right here. And it does look like we have the Broodlords. They are going to try and do some damage right here, it looks like. These cannons are going to melt to the Broodlings. Broodlings just have such high DPS, and they are free units. But I think this might deposition the Zerg army just a little bit. Decent storms on these Banelings. That was a huge hit right there. Decent hit on these queens as well. This queen is so close to dead. It has 7 health, but also 10 kills. That is wild. This queen has been alive for a long time. And now we have pretty big engagement here for both players. It's really hard to say who's going to come out ahead right now. If these Broodlords go down, this will give the ground army plenty of real estate to start attacking these Corruptors right here. And I actually think Icebrand is coming out slightly ahead right here. Actually, no, you know what? I said that, but now I think it's actually going to be Zerg coming out slightly ahead. Those Broodlings just do so much damage. Taking a look at this Broodlord, 13 kills, 9 kills on this one, 7 kills on this one. So these Broodlords doing a lot of damage right here. Army supply is now 38 for the Protoss player to 115 for the Zerg. Zerg is still maxed out, my friends. This is why it's so frustrating sometimes to go up against a late game Zerg. Even with some harassment right here, it's difficult. It is difficult to keep up. So, I do like the amount of stacked defense here, though. This would be a very hard position for the Zerg player to break, and we have so much creep everywhere. But it looks like Icebrand is going to go for a counterattack of his own. We have the the Zerg army right in the middle of the base. They are positioned well to take care of this, but I think this hatchery will go down. This is so many Templar. Oh my god. Icebrand is saving them for some storms, and I do hear what is going to be... Okay, we see more Broodling cocoons. Sorry, Broodlord cocoons. I'm just having trouble keeping up with this game right now. I'm tired. You know, that's my excuse. I'm filled with coffee that made me more tired, but increased my heart rate, man. Icebrand fighting tooth and nail to try and do some damage to this Zerg player. Right now, at this point, though, he's got a ton of resources. What I would do is I would sit back, re-macro up till I'm close to maxed out, and then I don't think I would engage in this army at all. This is a lot more Corruptors than Broodlords, though. So if he's able to snipe these Broodlords, I keep saying it, he'll have free real estate on these Corruptors. These Corruptors do nothing right now. They are just a meat shield for the Zerg player. Not that it matters. MisterFlip has been maxed out for so long. He's banking so many resources. 5k minerals. That is absolute insanity. And I keep saying it. I would not engage with this. I would even let this base die, and I would go for the other side of the map. Or I would run up to this this ledge right here, blink down, and destroy all these Broodlords. Because right now, the Broodlings are doing so much damage for free, and these Corruptors don't do anything. So, that is what I would do. But taking a look at the minimap, we have a double-pronged Zealot attack right here. I think both of these hatcheries might get sniped. This will be a huge pickup for our Protoss player right here. So very, very sly, very cunning move by Icebrand. Zerg does have a ton of resources banked. We do see this hatchery immediately being replaced. I expect that second hatchery that went down will also be replaced. It looks like we have a Nexus in the queue for the Protoss player. Man, this is going into ultra late game. I haven't cast a game over 25 minutes long in a minute, I feel like. And this is a lot of Void Rays. They will be able to snipe this. Good move by Icebrand. I want to see him focus down these Broodlords. And now we have all these Broodlords going down. We have a few more Broodlords in the back, though. Good move by Icebrand, pulling back these Void Rays. MisterFlip doing a great job not overextending himself as well, not flying into the fire line of what is going to be 5 cannons backed by 3 shield batteries, and we have a lot more Void Rays on the way with more DTs on the way as well. I expect we're going to see another DT push, and we do. This this hatchery just re-upped, will easily get sniped. This is I think I want to say 6 DTs, able to immediately melt that hatchery, and we have another attack at the bottom of the map. They do not quite snipe this this hatchery right here, but taking a look at the workers killed, 61 workers killed this game so far, and we have more DTs. They are just sniping the line of workers right here, and I think Protoss is doing the right thing. This is exactly what I was talking about earlier in my cast right here. Is you don't really want to engage in a huge Broodlord Corruptor army unless you have a very, very specific composition. You want to just go for sniping the bases and keeping the harassment up, because the Broodlords will just eat up your ground army. If you had a lot of Tempests and a decent amount of Void Rays, yeah, I think you might be able to take out a lot of the Zerg army, but this is not an army you want to engage in unless you catch the Zerg army out of position and are able to snipe the Broodlords with air units and then snipe the Corruptors with Blink Stalkers or something like that. So, at this point, MisterFlip realizing that he is succumbing to the harassment of the Protoss, I feel like, and going in for, I think this is a kill move for MisterFlip. I think he is committing to this, but you don't want to overextend. You want these Corruptors in position to protect these Broodlords, because otherwise you're going to lose a lot of Broodlords right here. They are so slow, and it looks like Zerg is running away. I don't think this is the move. I think I would have attacked with the Broodlords at this point. Zerg is losing so much of his anti-ground army right now. He really should have engaged in these Void Rays a lot sooner, but suddenly now we're looking at a huge twist. It is going to be 119 army supply to 54 in favor of the blue Protoss player Icebrand. Taking a look at the workers killed, almost 80 workers killed this entire game. And now Protoss pulling ahead, just got that perfect engagement right there. Zerg catching his army out of position, unfortunately. Really should have not overextended. He lost all his anti-ground units, all those Broodlords, and now this allows the Zealots to run free. Lost all the Corruptors to these Void Rays. And now I think we have what is Void Ray speed, so everything looks like it is moving fast-paced. This game is getting wild right here. We have another attack on this hatchery. We have what is going to be 50 army supply for the Zerg player to 90 for the Protoss player. This is going to be really tough to deal with right now. We have a few more Broodlords, but only 2 to a huge handful of Void Rays. They will immediately melt this army right here. MisterFlip throwing out the GG, giving the victory to Icebrand. Good sportsmanship right there, even though he did throw a manner lull at the abduction on that mothership. So very cool game. What a twist. It really looked like Zerg was ahead for a while, but Icebrand just making sure to not overextend himself and eventually catching Zerg out of position and winning himself the game, ultimately losing 81 workers for the Zerg player. So wild game indeed. If you enjoyed what you saw, please consider shooting me a like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you want me to cast any of your own games, I will leave my email in the description below. And I'll see you guys on the next one.